My name is Loretta Hayes and I'm from Hayes Sewing, and today we're going to show you how to install a new great feature on your 5-foot frame. If you have a Baby Lock Coronet, they refer to this as a pole frame upgrade. If you have a Handiquilter Simply 16, they refer to this as the little buddy. It is the same setup on both machines. So we're going to start over here on the right hand side of our frame as we are standing in front of it, where you would have the handlebars of your machine. So what we want to do is we want to locate the right frame guide. And so when you look at this, you're going to have one that faces this direction, and a little bit later we're going to show you one that faces the opposite direction for the left hand side. When we are attaching this piece, we are looking for the 2 button screws that are done with an Allen wrench. And you'll notice that on the piece that is already on your frame, there is actually a threaded hole. So what we want to do is we want to line up those 2 holes, and we're going to insert the screw into that threaded section. So it's a little bit of a wiggle. Just move it around until the screw falls into the hole. Do a little bit of hand turning of the screw just to get that one anchored, and then we can come in and we can do the same thing on that bottom section. Once you've got them seated, you can then take your Allen wrench that came with the kit and you can do a light turn. I wouldn't over tighten it quite yet, but just get it on there securely enough that it's not going to move for you. So the second bracket that we're going to put on the right side of the frame looks like this. And once again, it is bent outward towards the right. You'll see that there are 2 screw holes with 2 screws in them. It's going to line up right with those holes. So when you line them up, you're going to see, oh, there's screws already in there. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the same Allen wrench that we used to put on the back bracket. We're going to go to the inside of the frame and we're going to loosen up the 2 screws that are on that inside section. The 2 screws are a little bit smaller. So you see that the Allen wrench hooks into there. We're going to replace them with 2 larger screws, but you'll notice that the Allen wrench that you're using right now won't tighten those. So you want to get the second Allen wrench out of the box, and so you'll see that that's going to fit right into there. So when you go to replace this, the screw, you're going to put it through that bracket, and then you're going to go through the hole. And what you'll find is that as you have removed the screws, the frame has kind of shifted slightly. So don't panic if it takes a second for it to kind of wiggle in. Try and finger put it in first, and then go ahead and grab that larger Allen wrench, and you can start turning that. You may find that you need to lift up on the frame a little bit, so just work with it just a little bit to get that screw coming through. If you have a partner in crime, they could come and hold the bracket for you. But you see, as soon as you get it caught in there, it goes in there really, really easily. So before you take and you tighten up your screw entirely, take it and grab your second screw, exactly the same size, exactly the same Allen wrench, and we're going to take and we're going to push the bracket up, line up that second hole, and we're going to get that screw to go through. So once again, not to worry. The second one actually goes through way easier because when you've got that first one through, you've kind of lined up the bracket without any issue. Now, these 2 holes do not have threads in them. So on the back section, we took those 2 little button screws and we tightened them right into the part of the frame. On this one here, we're going to work our screws through the bracket, and then we're going to take a little nut and we're going to take and place that to the back. So the nut should be on the inside of the frame, the screw head should be on the outside of the frame right next to the bracket. And so once we get that done, we get the little nut, we've got the screw far enough through that we can tighten up the nut. We can then take off and start putting the nuts in. And they do give you a small wrench to hold on to these nuts. So you're just going to come through, use that wrench, and tighten up that bracket. And once again, I would snug it, but I would not super over tighten it. We can come back and tighten these screws once we get the rods in. So we've installed on the right hand side, and so now we need to repeat the same steps on the left hand side. So you'll notice that the bracket now bends to the left hand. Your 2 button screws are going to screw right into the bar that sticks up. That has always been on your frame. We remove the 2 button screws and we replaced with the really long ones and then tighten that up. So the next step on our assembly is to do the pole bearing assembly. And so those 4 parts are right here. So you'll notice that they all look pretty much the same, but you have one pair that has the hole plugged, and you have one pair that has the hole unplugged. You can install these on either side of the frame, but whichever side of the frame you would like the handle that you're going to wrap your fabric up with, that is the side that you want to do the unplugged version. So we're going to install our handle on the right hand side of the frame. So we're going to take the unplugged version and we're going to place it over top of the bracket that we previously installed. So it's important that it goes over and not to the right or to the left of it. If you put it to the right or the left, when you put the screw through, you'll think that, oh, the screw is too short, it won't go through all the way. So if you place it over top, you can then take the screw, and we're going to insert the screw from the right hand side, from the outside of the frame, going towards the inside of the frame. Then we're going to take the 2 nuts and we're going to put those on the inside. So we'll do a little finger tightening here. What's nice is at this point the screws are now all the same, so you don't have to worry, oh, do I have the right screw? Everything's really easy to work with there. So we're going to take 2 of the tools that we had in the kit. We have the small Allen wrench that's going to fit into the screw here, and then this is the wrench they gave you in the kit. So if you do the hexagonal opening at the top, put that onto the nut, and we'll go ahead and we'll start tightening. And just little tips and tricks. I find it much easier to tighten up these screws if I put the short end of the Allen wrench into the screw head. Then we can take and we can twist it. It gives you a little bit more torque. It's certainly easier on the hands than it is if you put the long end in. Now, one of the things that's super, super important is you'll notice that when we put this bracket on, that unplugged version of the bracket, the end of it, is facing away from me. If I'm standing at the front of the machine, if you have the handlebars and your tension here, it should be facing the back of the frame. Now, once you've installed this one on here, then you're going to move to the front, and on the front, we're going to take and we're going to put the bracket on the front bracket. So we're going to come in, and so once again, super important that we're going over top and not to the left or the right of the pin. We'll come in, we'll insert our screw, just kind of wiggle that in. They pop in super easy on this one. And then we're going to come in and we're going to take the nuts, and once again, super, super important that that unplugged area is now facing towards the back or the top of the frame. We don't want that down here underneath. So we'll get those nuts on there. Take our wrench, pop onto there, put the short end of the Allen wrench in, and we'll just go ahead and tighten those up. So a super, super easy install on this side, and we're going to then move on to the left side of the frame. So we're now over here on the left side of the frame, and you can see that we installed the plugged version of our pole bearers, and we're going to put the 2 screws, making sure that the bracket is over top of our metal bar. Using our wrench, we'll tighten that in, and we'll do the same thing on the front of the left hand side, the 2 screws, making sure it's going over top. Things to check: make certain that the plugged version, once again, is facing the back of the frame and the top of the frame. Super important. So here we are back at the right hand front of the frame, and we're now going to assemble the bottom ratchet stop assembly. And so there are 5 parts to this. So you'll have a screw and the stop, and they, when they came out of the package, were screwed together. So unscrew that, go ahead and lay that out. You're then going to take and you're looking for this piece that has the notch, and that notch should be facing towards you. Then you're going to have a place that has kind of a square end and a round end. That's going to go to there. And then we're looking for a piece that has a little pin. That is going to be facing the left hand side, assuming you are installing on the right hand side of the frame. And then our last piece is going to be the stop. So we're going to start by inserting the screw into this piece here. Don't panic that this is loose. That's okay, because the next piece is going to fit in there, and that's going to make that so that it stays level. Then the next 2 pieces we need to kind of install while we are putting this in. So the piece with the little pin that's facing to the left, you'll see there's a square in there, and you see the square for the unplugged version. We use those for identifying before. So we're going to insert that down the center, and then you'll see this piece here has a square, and so we're going to line that up as well. So it's kind of a little bit of a wiggle. When you go to install it, we want to have this pin here, that little pin, in that little groove. And then we're going to come in, and we're going to put our stop in, and then turn the screw until we tighten that up. So we're doing the final tightening steps on this assembly. So once again, much easier to put the short end of the Allen wrench in to tighten up the screw. As we tighten up the screw, make certain that little pin is in the slot of our stop. It will wiggle a little bit, but once you're tightened up, it won't pop out. Right, so now we're going to install the top ratchet stop assembly. So after attaching this one on the front right-hand side, it's almost identical on this second side. So once again, we're going to have the same 5 parts. We're going to take the screw and place that into the ratchet stop. Don't worry that it wiggles. Insert the round end in. We're then going to take our stop pin and we're going to place that in so that the square lines up. And we're going to wiggle that through. There we go. Then we're going to take our stop and we're going to place that in, and we're going to tighten the screw. Just a quick reminder, when you're tightening it up, this is kind of loose and floppy. See how it'll fall down? So when you're getting close to tightening up your screw, make sure that that little pin is in the slot of the stop. Take your Allen wrench and then tighten it up. And it'll still have some wiggle, but it won't fall down like it just did. So literally, we'll just do a little fine tuning here. and we're fully stopped, and you can see it wiggles, but it stays upright. So this time we are now going to put the ratchet with the hand wheel on that right hand side of the pole for to attach to our frame. So things that you need to be aware of. There are 2 ratchets in your kit. One is the ratchet wheel assembly long, and one is the ratchet wheel assembly short. So for our hand wheel, we're looking for the one that's long. So literally just look for the longer screw. We're all set with that. When you go to take it out of the package, what you'll find is that this piece here is kind of hooked together. So you don't want to, they tell you to loosen the nut, but really they've already loosened it for you. So it doesn't want to come off. And what we're going to do is we're going to push on this end so that this section here is now going to be popped open and free. Then what we can do is we're going to come in and we're going to insert that into our pole. So once we have that done, we're going to pull on that bolt, and it instantly tightens this bracket into our pole. So now what we need to do is we need to find our hand wheel. And so at this point, we are going to literally take the nut off, and we're going to take the first washer. Everything else should stay on. But I'm going to open this up just a little bit so that you can see the important pieces. So this black kind of plasticky washer is going to go over top here, and it will not allow you to see the 3 notches that are on this pin here. When you take a look at your hand wheel, as it comes out of the package, they have put a piece of protective tape over the flywheel so that these are not going to get moved or damaged. So when we go to put this on, it's very important that these 3 prongs fit into those 3 notches. So we're going to slide the washer up, but you'll kind of wiggle it and you'll feel those notches come together. At that point, we're going to put our washer back on and our nut back on. We'll do a little hand tightening, and we're going to use the last tool that they gave us in the kit, which is the bigger wrench. And so you'll see you have 2 hexes. So we're going to come in and we're going to use the larger hexie. And so we're literally going to come in. You almost have to come in at an angle, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to tighten that up. So as you tighten it up, it serves actually 2 purposes. Number one, it's going to tighten the handle on, but it's also shortening up this bracket piece. And when you tighten it up, it tightens it super tight into that pole. So even though there's a hole in this pole, there's like nothing that you're going to be inserting into that. This bracketing piece is going to take care of that for us, and it tightens it up, and so we have a nice secure connection. You'll feel that the ratchet no longer turns, and when you turn the handle, you're spinning both the ratchet and the pole. It's not spinning within the pole. So we've finished tightening up our nut on our hand wheel. Important things to know, they make a big deal of this in your directions, is that the nut will feel tightened, but it's not tightened until you have 3/8 of an inch or 1/2 an inch of screw hanging out of the nut. Once that is, and you'll feel a very definite, like it won't really want to turn anymore. Then you're going to take the black cap that they provided and you're going to put that over the top just so that you're not going to scratch yourself with the screw. So now we're going to install the lower rod's ratchet wheel. So this is the one that has the short screw. And so there's not a lot of room for us to push this bracket piece out. So what you want to do is kind of put your thumb on the nut and then take your fingers and push back on this piece here. You'll feel it kind of snap maybe about 1/8 of an inch in, and then you're going to find that it's going to be fairly easy for you to insert it on. At that point, we can now start tightening up our nut. And so once again, it's important that when we're tightening it, it's going to tighten it, and it's not truly tight until we have about 3/8 of an inch to 1/2 an inch showing on the outside. And so you'll hit a point where like you just aren't going to be able to tighten anymore, and you're done, and then your black cap is going to attach on. So the last things that we need to do to prepare the poles themselves are to add the other pieces in the end of the pole. So we've done the 2 ratchet ends, which have got the cogged version of our ends. So now we're going to take these smaller ends and place them in the opposite end of the pole. So I'm going to flip a pole. So you now see we have basically the same thing that we had before. So once again, we're going to loosen up that nut a little bit, slide it down, and we're going to pull on this little outer bracket. So put your thumb on there and just pull that down. Shouldn't take more than like about 1/8 of an inch. And as soon as we do that, we should be able to fit that in fairly easily. Then we're going to come in with our large wrench, and we're going to start our tightening. And remember, it's not tight until we have 3/8 to 1/2 an inch of thread showing on the screw. And there's a very definite, I'm tight, we're done. And then we're going to pop that on. We're going to duplicate exactly the same thing on the handle ratchet on the opposite end. These are exactly the same. There is no long or short version of them. So we're installing the top rail first. The top rail is the rail that has the handle for cranking your fabric. So we tuck the pole down through the throat of the machine, and we placed it in the 2 U-shaped black brackets. What's interesting is you'll see the washer, there's a black washer that has kind of a V shape. We want that to line up right in the notches here, and it's easier to see on this end, so we thought we'd show you this end first. So you're going to line it up, so you're taking the pole and you're just lining up the little V-shaped protrusions into the washer, and then you're just going to gently push, and you'll feel a very definite snap. And you've just installed that end of the pole, and we will show you a picture on the handle end of the pole. So here we are on the handle end of that top rail. We've got our black washer notched in, and we'll grab a hold of the pole and just push in, and very definite snap. So now we're installing the front rail, the bottom rail. And so once again, it's a repeat of the top rail. We have our washer that's V'd in, and so we're going to push that in, and you feel that definitely snap. And you're going to do the same thing on the ratchet end. However, this is the pole that you don't want to pull and have it drop on your foot. So what they give you is they give you a pole keeper. So these black caps, you get 2 of them, one for this end, one for the ratchet end. It's going to insert so that you have this kind of longer area on top of that washer. Push it firmly and it locks it into place. And so now if you inadvertently pulled on the quilt, it would not be a problem. The pole is going to stay on the frame. So at this point, you've done all of the mechanical installation. The last thing to install are the leader cloths. And so they've given us Velcro to do that in the kit. And so kind of an easier way of doing this is to do this while it's on the frame. So on the ratchet end, remember we had the pin in the little bracket? That pin is flexible. So we can pull the bracket down and just roll it towards the back so it locks the pole in place. Then what we want to do is we want to get a friend if you can. If not, you can do it a little at a time. We're going to peel the Velcro off. So my nice assistant is going to come on this end, and she's going to hold it at the top. I'm going to peel the Velcro. And I'm going to take and I'm going to hold my end to the top as well. All the way to the end. Mm-hmm. By taking and stretching it like a string, we have a better shot at keeping it straight. You can work it across. And the adhesive is, you can reposition it a little at a time, and they've given you a little bit more Velcro than you need, and so you can come in. Looking at this, and I don't know if you can see on the camera, but I have a slight bubble there. So now's the time, guys. Just peel it back off and get that bubble out. Take your time getting this correct, because this is really what's going to hold your quilt onto the frame, and we definitely want that straight. You're going to install the Velcro on this lower bar, and then we're going to do exactly the same thing at the upper bar. We're going to pull our ratchet, lock that bar up, and we're going to come in and we're going to put our Velcro in the top bar. So the final thing to do for installing your Velcro is the extra length that we have on the Velcro we want to remove. So we're going to take a pair of scissors and we're going to trim it so that the Velcro lands just on the white, not up on the black. One of the things that I did for mine is, once I was installed, I put my eye level to the bar and looked down to make sure that I was happy with how straight it was. It really made a difference. I could make little adjustments. Once again, you want to take the time to get this straight, because then it's going to be much easier to get your quilt lined up straight. So we have finished installing the Velcro. We double checked that everything was straight. And so the final thing that we need to do to finish this install is to attach the leader cloth actually to the frame. So an easy thing to do is to measure from the end of the pole, and I actually measured from that outer edge black piece, and I measured 34 inches, and I made a mark on the pole with a pencil. Then I took the leader cloth and I folded it in half and did the same thing with the leader cloth, so I have the pencil mark there. This way we've got the center of both items. And so now we're going to take and we're going to line up those two pencil marks, and we're going to start running the Velcro down so that we're attaching the loop part of the Velcro to the hook part of the Velcro. Now you'll notice that when we're installing the leader cloth, that the leader cloth does not go all the way to the end of the frame. So it is a 5-foot frame, which is great for space, because a lot of people have, I can't put a 10-foot frame in mine. So what happens is the width of the machine, you can see with the ruler base over here, that the sewing part of the machine is only going to really go to that end of that leader cloth. So the leader cloth is 55 inches, and that's a really good judge for your size of your project. This is going to be awesome for like a baby quilt or a wall hanging or table runners, that kind of thing. So you can't put a queen size quilt obviously on a 5-foot frame. Still have the ability to clamp like we've always done. So if you are doing a bigger project, we can clamp that larger project on. Once you have that finished, you can take your leader cloth and wrap it up onto that. And what's going to happen is the leader cloth is going to come underneath this bar here, and you're going to pin your quilt backing to it. So now we're attaching the last leader cloth to our bottom bar. And so we're going to start by doing the same as we did for the top bar. We're going to take and measure 34 inches, make a pencil mark right in the middle of the bar. Then we're going to come in, fold our leader cloth in half, make a pencil mark right in the center of our leader cloth. And we're going to take the leader cloth and we're going to hang it right, line up those two pencil marks, and we're going to press the loop part of the Velcro into the hook part of the Velcro. And take some time doing this. Make sure you get it lined up so it's nice and straight. Now, one of the things that you might have noticed is when we were attaching the leader cloth to this front bar and to the top bar, when I initially attached it, I had the leader cloth hanging over the back of the bar. And that is because the ratchet, when you go to tighten everything up, will then roll it up very flatly. What will then happen is this leader cloth is going to come up here and we're going to pin it to our backing. Congratulations, you now have installed your little buddy or your pole frame upgrade. This is a wonderful system for doing small projects that allows you to roll your quilt. And we'll be doing a video shortly on how to pin your backing and organize your batting and quilt top to do those great projects.